But they can't keep
Southampton.
buying good players, can they? Every time
Well, why
someone
not?
leaves.
Because I mean, when Leicester City's new owners came in, what was it? Probably 6 years ago now, maybe even longer ago than that. They set up the ambition of a good scouting network and a good academy because it wasn't something that was particularly fruitful in Leicester City's history, and that was one of their focuses was to be able to identify good young talent from the continent in a very similar way to Wolves did a couple of seasons ago and bring them through. So they've got that investment in a scouting system now. So why can't they continue? And a lot of teams seem to overlook this. I mean, Marley will know from his team, Newcastle. I certainly know from my team, West Ham, that the kind of scouting networks have been woefully underfunded and massively ignored for a lot of Premier League teams, which seems insanity when you look at the kind of talent and the kind of assets that teams like Leicester City are picking up. So I don't see why they've got the investment there, they've got the players, they've got the scouts, they've got the network. I don't see why they can't continue to identify and pick up talent from the continent. The challenge is going to be as other clubs do wake up to the fact that this is an area they need to invest in, there will be more competition from those players, and those players will be identified by multiple clubs. What Leicester City have got going for them, which I think sets them apart from the Southamptons that you talk about, is the status of their club. They have made use of having these good players in their team, and season on season they seem to improve, they seem to build, they seem to improve their status. And now if you talk about bigger clubs coming in to poach players from Leicester City and take away these prized assets like Fofana, for example, it's going to have to be one of the big four.
And it's going to cost you £80 million as well,
Yeah,
to use Maguire
exactly.
for an example.
Yeah, it's going to cost a load of money, and Leicester City, they've got the money to, increasingly so. The more they qualify for the Champions League, the more they can offer wages that makes players want to stay at the club, which feels like a really well-run football team that is on the up. So I think we will still see players being picked off by the big teams. Undoubtedly, you'll get Manchester United or Manchester City or Liverpool coming in and trying to pick away their prized assets. But that will happen less and less often. And that continued recruitment of good quality talent, I see absolutely no reason why that should stop.
I think Jim's right, Marley. The more successful Leicester are, the more they're becoming less likely that they're going to need to find these replacements, because players will be more keen to stay and work on the project that Brendan Rodgers has got in play there, with them qualifying for the Champions League, possibly on course to win the FA Cup too. You know, there's great opportunities there for players, and they'd probably be more likely to stay than leave.
Yeah, I think sometimes we talk about springboards in football, and players using clubs as a springboard to a bigger thing. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes you can get a good player for 3 or 4 years, and then if they go on to better things, fine. But in them 3 or 4 years, if you achieve something, they are likely to stay. For example, Fofana, he came in thinking, I'm going to get first team football here in the Premier League. The teams in the top 8 every year. It's a good move for me, and maybe I can get to a really big team off the back of it. I don't know if he thought like that coming into Leicester, but maybe if he did, he's in the meantime, it's not going too badly, is it? They could get into the Champions League, and then that gives you a few more years. You don't have to leave because the club's not going anywhere. The club's progressing. It's got a good manager. They're bringing in other good players. They've done well in the transfer market, like we said. And they're challenging for trophies and European qualification every year. So, I think a lot of people write players off when they use things as a springboard, and sometimes there's nothing wrong with it. I don't think you can have good times in that time. It's up to you as a club to be good enough to keep players hungry and to keep them believing. And I think Fofana right now, for example, just to use him as an example, he's not thinking, bloody hell, this team's going nowhere, but I'm having a good season, I need to move in the summer. He's thinking, I've got everything I need here to stay for 2 or 3 more years, make myself one of the best centre-backs in the league by reputation, and then we'll see what happens. Leicester might be a regular Champions League team in that time. That there's no guessing what might happen, and then obviously if they're not and he's still quality, then more teams can come in for him, because you don't go unnoticed if you're playing at that level for a team like Leicester.